X-Pac 12360.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean X-Pac Wolfman.
Welcome to X-Pac 12360, everyone.
That was grand. It was
very
booming.
I was all animated for all the people watching. Anyways,
Your conductor, everyone.
thank you for joining us again each and every week. It's going to be a good show. A little bit later on, we're going to be joined by Dave Lagana, and he's going to talk about, we are going to talk about the Crockett Cup, which when I was a kid, when I was younger, it was one of the really cool, big wrestling extravaganzas by the Crockett's. So.
Now, out of the 3 Crockett Cups, which do you have a favorite that you remember the most?
I only remember the 2.
Okay.
I only remember 2 of them, and they kind of blend together a little bit. Do I have something on my?
No, that was all me.
Oh, okay. Like I'm looking over here at Denise, and she's like wiping her thing, and wiping her face, and I think she was trying to give me thought you were trying to give me the Iggy that I got a booger on my mustache or something.
Let's talk about Denise some more. I think is what we need to do.
So, anyways, no, I just there were some really cool things about the Crockett Cup. One was when when Magnum came out.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that moment? After the car accident and all that.
And he'll be appearing on April 27th.
Which is so appropriate, right?
Yep.
And anyways, we'll talk about the Crockett Cup a little bit later when Dave comes on.
Yes, we will.
And it's just there's a lot going on in wrestling. So I think Denise can probably clue us in a little bit. Enlighten us, Denise.
I'll go ahead and clue you guys in. I'll stop scratching my face with a pen. All right. So the most popular, I guess you can say, luchadors right now, bringing in the hype of lucha into the United States, the Lucha Brothers, Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. may be headed to All Elite Wrestling as non-exclusive talent. During a show in Georgia, the Lucha Brothers had a moment with the Young Bucks after they faced Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels in a match. The Young Bucks came out and they basically said, you guys are the second best tag team in the world. If you guys want to prove that you guys are the best, you guys should come to All Elite Wrestling. In the end, they had a handshake between the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. I think, when it comes to, let me just talk about Mexico for a second when it comes to those guys. Those guys, those 2 fellas are such big deals, and they're so valuable that all the companies down there that hate each other are willing to share.
Sure.
Them. Just like back in the day when you had Mil Mascaras. There was, there's Mil, there was a few other ones. Io del Santo, some other ones that could jump to whatever and do independent stuff and what have you down in Mexico. And it seems like those guys are, to me, kind of like they must be of that caliber because, they're working for AAA. They work some for CMLL. Am I correct, Denise?
AAA, CMLL, which is the 2 companies
That's
that you're
unheard of,
referring
that one
to
point.
about the confliction. And when I actually spoke with Ray Phoenix, he actually said that was like, he called it a beautiful thing that the fact that these 2 companies were able to set their anger aside to let them come out and do what they do best. So that's really nice for them. But AAA, CMLL, MLW, Impact, and they still have 3 seasons left in their Lucha Underground contract.
Hey, and you know what? Those guys, not just anyone in wrestling can get away with that, right? I mean, there's if I'm thinking of others that are available right now, well, none of it. Like, there's Jericho. There was Rey Mysterio before he signed back with Vince.
Johnny Mundo.
Yeah, but But Johnny doesn't get, he does, but he does, it's not like he was going and doing, Crown Jewel and then, All In or, kind of like Ray.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So yes, in his own right, totally, Johnny is right up there. But anyway, where was I?
Well, essentially, I think one of the things that we should
Run in my
bring
mouth.
up is the fact that, because the Lucha Brothers have their contract with Lucha Underground
Yeah.
and they're pivotal to Lucha Underground
Yeah.
and their success, basically they have to have that permission from Dorian and from Lucha Underground AAA to be able to work with All Elite Wrestling. Now, obviously, they were able to do All In, so chances are that they will be at Double or Nothing, and they might be appearing, I don't know, this is all my assumptions,
Yeah.
they might be appearing on a weekly basis once All Elite Wrestling gets kicked
Yes.
up. And the only reason why I say that is because Dorian does like for his talent to appear on U.S. television because, it makes them look a
Sure.
lot grander.
Yeah. Yes.
But
it.
some talent are still not allowed to do anything. Like I know, for example, I believe Joey Ryan, Eva Lise, a few others, their contract must be different because they're kind of locked into that Lucha Underground. So it's a very murky waters right now with Lucha Underground and the contract situation.
Yeah.
I think it's a challenge thing. I think if you're big enough, you can just go sue me, and then they realize they might not want to be
Perhaps.
in a public legal battle. That I think a lot of people on the undercard of Lucha Underground just don't have that clout.
Well, I think there was a brief window where people were allowed out of the exclusive contracts. Some jumped out, some stayed in, so that could be it too.
Well, that's
right,
what
well, here's-
essentially happened with
here's-
Joey and...
Here's a potential issue. When you're trying to sell, your TV show or potential TV show to a major network, they're not going to want, some of your main talent, just being able to show up on other people's television.
Absolutely.
That's an issue. That's a real issue that I'm sure, I don't know, how they're going to
And
work around that.
the networks that AEW is rumored to be talking to,
That would
they
be an
would-
issue for them.
that would be 100% an issue for them, and I'm sure AEW is coming to them with a plan of these are the contracts we're giving our current talent.
Yeah.
That they'll be all of our current talent that will appear on our television show will be locked up in a way that they won't appear anywhere else.
No question. And
Well, Right
Perfect.
now, for this moment in time, though, for Phoenix and Pentagon, it's very good because they're one of the only few guys that are actually making the rounds and working
Yeah.
everybody. Impact is bending backwards for them to go and work as many possible shows as shown for WrestleMania. They're actually moving they actually pushed their show till 11 o'clock just so the Lucha Brothers can go and fulfill other commitments. So they're doing all that they possibly can for them to make as much money as possible and keep them happy. So the Lucha Brothers, because they're able to sort of get away with being able to work with everybody, I feel that's what might keep them non-exclusive for a while.
Hey, so was there an issue? I read a Court Bauer tweet that said that those guys stormed out of the ECW arena after the tag match with Harry and Teddy.
So I didn't read that part of the tweet. I didn't
Was
read
that
that
the
part.
storyline
but
shit?
That might be storyline.
Okay.
But I did read Court Bauer's tweet, which he basically said that that he wanted to thank the Lucha Brothers for 7 months of being in MLW and that he was thankful for everything that they did. It was essentially a goodbye tweet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to read into it however you want with that.
I'm just curious because it looked like there was some cooperation issues in that match from Philly, from the MLW show the other night.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, everyone's all of a sudden going to act like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Give me a break. You guys were watching
Are we talking
too,
about
right?
Harry Smith and
Yes.
Phoenix
Yeah.
situation?
And Teddy, it looked like Teddy wasn't too happy at one point towards the end. I don't know if something happened to his nose or whatever, but I know Teddy, and I could tell the look on his face at the end there. So it didn't look like it went as smooth as it could have.
Yeah.
Although I enjoyed it.
Oh, it was great. Very
I
entertaining.
enjoyed that show. I enjoyed watching that show from ECW Arena because I like the look, the aesthetics of the building on TV, as opposed to the one they do down in Miami. I'm not a big fan of.
Me either.
Because I like the promotion. It's important, the look of the TV.
I also, the ECW arena, I've only ever known it as a former bingo hall
Yeah.
that turned into that arena. So I actually really, really like the aesthetic of the ECW arena, that it just shows decades of remodeling
Yes.
from being a bingo hall no one used.
Oh,
to
the first
now
time
being,
I went in there, oh my God.
Oh, it's...
Hoo-wee.
Yeah, now it's conducive for television.
Yes.
So there you go.
Now, before we move on to the next topic, I do want to mention, obviously, we have Jimbo back, and Jimbo does the
Oh,
Lucha
yeah, Jimbo.
Underground shows.
Yeah.
So I do want to bring up the
Shit.
Lucha Underground topic. So a lot of people suspect that Lucha Underground is done, that they're no longer going to be a thing, even though they still have people under contract, which we talked previously about the show. However, I have a new theory. So AAA recently got a new TV deal with TV Azteca, which means they are going to be having new money, including they have TV deals with Twitch, with Space, and Multimedios. So I'm just going to throw this theory out there. I think that because AAA is coming into some new money, I think that may be the seed money to fund a new season of Lucha Underground. And I feel that no one's talked about that yet. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there and see what happens.
So you're saying they're going to film it on their own and then try to sell it aside from El Rey? Is that your theory?
No, well, my theory is because AAA is the parent company of Lucha Underground, that
Right.
they're going to use that money that they're getting from TV Azteca and from their other
do you
deals
mean the parent company?
to help fund. They're the parent company essentially. With I don't know how to explain that.
Well, I
Other
feel
parent
like
company.
it's not like the Mark Burnett production.
Yes.
Like I feel like it's a production company that's
Yeah.
Well,
They've been
either
out of
way,
Mark
I
Burnett.
feel that
Oh, they've
because
been out
of
of that?
with that money though, I think that that's what they can use to help fund Lucha Underground if they obviously want to keep it together.
So you think that because they got this money, they're just going to invest it in season 5 of Lucha Underground?
Correct.
And let's
That's
just
my
hold
assumption.
everyone in purgatory while we
Figure that
while
out.
we sit and pick our ass and figure out what the fuck we're gonna do.
I think
Anyways.
the AEW deal is crucial to whatever. If AEW can get TV before Double or Nothing, it'll be TV under a network that'll be big enough to literally just jump in and say, "Hey, we'll sue you."
But if they
we'll
get
take
T-
these guys and sue you.
They're not going to announce a TV deal before Double or Nothing.
But
They're
I
going to
know.
wait till after that, I think. But they're going to
That's
get
it
TV.
depends.
Right.
It depends how close they are. I don't think they're as close as people are saying they. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they can, they
I'll be
would.
honest with you. I've forgotten about Lucha Underground.
Same here.
Out of
it's
sight,
too
out of
late?
mind. Yes. Goodbye. Sorry.
Yep.
Just be honest with you.
We haven't heard any talks
I'm all
of it coming
for
back.
good wrestling and different stuff, and I love their take on how to present wrestling, but like not if you're gonna have bullshit contracts that hold people in purgatory that need to make a living.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's bullshit.
Well, the last season ended with Jack Swagger and Wade Barrett showing up and being like the new gods and where they're going to go into season 5. And Jack Swagger won his first MMA fight. And as soon as he was done, he's like, I plan on being here for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee how that's going to work with Lucha Underground. So I
Yeah.
really don't see a season 5 happening. I really wish it does. And
We
I
hope
think
so.
Evilise and Joey, when they signed contracts in season 1, signed up until season 7, which might be why their
Yeah.
contract's a lot tighter than other
Who the
guys.
fuck
I think
signs a
wasn't it
contract
8
for that long?
seasons? I heard it was 8 seasons that they might have signed for.
I just think, financial security was the idea.
No.
I don't know.
That's so. Sorry, I mean, you gotta think ahead more than that. You have to. That is so crazy.
Well, let's-
you never sign a deal for that long with no guaranteed income. It's so silly.
Especially with all the comparisons to
Yes.
WSX. So if you signed on for 7 seasons and they only did 1 season, and then they were like, we're just going to run reruns, but you're signed. So
Right.
you can't do anything.
And we're not going to pay royalties
and we're
on the
not-
reruns
yeah.
because that was
so
your deal.
You never know. But yeah, it seems like I know Sammy Callahan wasn't getting paid, so he's like, peace, I'm going to Impact. They didn't do anything to him. Brian Cage, same situation, was like, I'm out.
Well, okay, that's just okay. So what happens then is if someone is seen as valuable enough to possibly do a legal battle for, But what about the people? Who go, it's not worth it bringing Evilise in because we don't want to.
we don't want to fight for Evilise. We
Right.
just want to have
nothing against her or anyone.
but-
I don't even mean to bring anybody in particular's name up, but I'm just saying,
But it puts there are strings to certain talents
Yes.
now because
okay,
they
yeah,
have
I'm
Lucha
willing to fight
Underground
for that
contract.
person. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's like WWE going, don't worry about that non-compete clause.
Yeah,
We'll
like
handle
you
it."
guys were talking about last
Yeah.
week.
Yeah,
You
like-
got to believe if they get to a point where they decide we're not going to do a season 5, they're going to have to do the professional thing and allow
No, they
people
don't.
out
They're
of
not
their
going to have to do shit.
contracts. Well,
They're not, and I highly doubt they will. To be honest with you,
wow.
But what you're saying,
because they don't give a fuck. I mean, I don't mean they as in them in particular. I mean people and in that in the,
Yeah.
in the
people
industry.
the people who write these 7-season deals like they're candy, because
Yeah.
reality TV stars get stuff like this too, where you're just locked in forever. Like these deals are so common and so defended that they're like, you know what? You want to fight us? Let's fight us. That's part of that's baked into our business model. Is
That's
you,
right.
You fighting the contract. It's frustrating.
Next.
All right, moving on to more of a nicer note. The original PW Insider has said that Original Heart Foundation will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, we're just months away from WrestleMania. We still haven't had any official names yet announced by WWE, but this is the report that Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Jimmy Hart will be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
That's great. I like it for the obvious reason of getting Jim in there. I also think that they should throw Danny Davis in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. And some of them have a lot to do with just his contributions behind the scenes over the years.
Sure.
And for those reasons, and some things that I could never even mention. So I think that in my humble opinion, I think Danny Davis needs to be included in on that. That's just my opinion. But I love it. I love the whole, let's get Jim in there.
And it's not official, so that still might be the case.
Right. Okay. So.
All right. Moving on to, we have some Undertaker news. So in some interesting tidbits, I guess you can say, on the Undertaker's Twitter account, he has officially removed any like WWE related sort of stuff. So now he actually has on his bio, instead, he has like a booking inquiry with his email where people can contact him for appearances.
Yes. And it's not anything like, if anyone ever followed Shawn Michaels on social media before he took the job back at Performance Center, it was a similar situation. But Shawn was taking outside appearances. I did appearances with him. For independent wrestling shows, the catch was it has to be separate. The appearance has to be separate. It's not part of the wrestling show. So I'm pretty sure that's what's going to be with Taker too. Like, say for instance, somebody that brings people like that in as far as wrestling promotions that have a good name.
Of course.
I didn't mean to say decent. Like, it's better than decent. Maryland Championship Wrestling. Great people over there. And I did appearances, Sean, Scott, Kevin, and I appearances together for them, and they kept it separate. It was like a little fan fest separate. So yes, and in that way, if just so happens you end up, at an appearance connected to, an independent promotion that might be less than, up to snuff product wise, then you're not seen as endorsing this show.
Yeah.
You're in and out before the show even starts.
Exactly. Also, the email on his Twitter is undertaker@getengagedmedia.com. If you go to getengagedmedia.com, they list WWE as a client.
Okay.
So anyone who's saying like, "Oh my God, Undertaker's thinking of leaving," he's taking bookings on his own. Like, I think this is much ado about nothing.
And people might want to point to, he was seen appearing with Impact Wrestling stars at a convention. It was the SHOT Show.
Yeah.
It's a hunting and shooting show, and Taker is an
enthusiast in that world.
And also Impact is on a network that features hunting and fishing and things of that nature. So that's why that happened.
How does he hide in the woods from animals? He's a massive individual.
Bigfoot.
Wow. All right.
Let's go out squatching.
Well, moving on, Sean, you put out, was it yesterday that you put out
last night,
where you put out a very popular tweet about Kairi Sane having the best elbow in the business, which actually garnered over 196 comments.
Show that GIF or whatever. Can you pop that up on screen, Marcus?
There it is.
Yeah, it's up right now.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So come on, that is the sweetest elbow drop I've ever seen in my entire life.
And she does that consistently every night.
Time. And people, obviously, when I wrote that tweet, I'd already thought of the obvious choices that people were going to go, what about obviously Randy Savage has the most iconic, as Shelton Benjamin pointed out in one of his tweets in regards to this. Yeah. Randy's is the most iconic, but the best elbow drop ever
Shelton
I've ever
specifically
seen.
said, nobody, male or female, it's the best top rope elbow drop I've ever seen. To which Killian Dane agreed,
And also Jessamine Duke.
and Jessamine Duke.
Yes.
It's funny because obviously when I would see her do the elbow drop on TV, I was like, "Whoa, like that's cool, that's great." But when I saw her do it for the first time live in person, I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, that girl's flying like
Yeah.
higher than I thought anyone was capable
And
of
when
flying."
she goes up there, you see all the flash bulbs going off.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
She gets horizontal. That's incredible. You need
Yeah.
all types of core strength to do
you,
that.
you know, like, and people going, "Oh, Mach did." Trust me, I knew Randy Savage. If he was alive, I'm almost positive, knowing him, he would go, "Oh yeah, hers is better."
Yeah. Just it's the elbow for the time.
Yes.
The first time I ever saw it was actually night one of the very first Mae Young Classic taping, and it was the main event.
Yeah. I've never, like, obviously, there are some people that might have dropped a single elbow that maybe looked better than the one she. But on a regular, consistent basis,
Nails
no.
it.
As a finish, yeah, that's
No.
Nails it.
Next.
All right. Well, speaking of Twitter, Shelton Benjamin posted a tweet, which he also pinned as his #1 main tweet, so you can go out there and check it out. He basically posted current at WWE status with a GIF of a car spinning wheels with smoke coming out.
Yes.
And then he also got an interesting reply from Scott Hall, who wrote, "Cash the checks, young man."
That's a fair response, and that's one way of looking at it. And it all depends on the person. It depends on the person, and like. I don't like. Hey, if you can cash the checks and still have happiness and all that, yeah, that's great. And a lot of people can do that. Some people can't.
also Shelton's,
it's
Shelton's
a case.
left before.
Yeah,
That maybe that's his cycle. That
yeah.
it's
And they called him. They
Yeah.
called him and asked him to come back.
oh yeah, that they call him, say we have all these great ideas for you, and then he comes in and it's more of the same. And then he finds the time to leave, and he leaves, and then they call him again, and he comes back. And I don't know. I think what Scott Hall might be saying is understand that might be the process. That might be what it is. Like, that might be the cycle that goes around. And every time you come back, they're calling you. They might pay you more, and you might get to do a little more.
I don't know.
Or if you get to go somewhere else and do something.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No
I
matter,
just
yeah, he looked great at the Rumble.
Yes.
So there's that.
He looks great every time we see him. He's been frustrated. Like, it's frustrating to hear that they call him, and then so that's the spot you saw for him.
I just feel like there's certain guys that we already know are only going to get to a certain point, whether they've been in the company for years or etc. So I almost feel like, I don't know, it's weird to me because I feel like once you get to a certain point, certain guys don't move from there. And I feel like obviously most of them realize it when they get to that point, and maybe they have hope that they'll continue on. But it was just interesting to me that, Shelton Benjamin, when he was first in the company, I remember everybody saying push this guy to the moon, push him to the moon. He's incredible. And he never got there.
Yes.
So it's almost like
I don't know
had
what you mean by he
moments.
never got there.
He
Yeah,
had
how much of it
moments,
was
okay,
him?
but
He's
I'm
there.
just saying compared to other other top guys in the company, he wasn't there.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard this before, but as far as the University of Minnesota wrestling team, he was the #1.
Yeah.
He was considered the most talented guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever. Did you happen to see when I interviewed him? That it was
Episode
on the
76?
show. Yes. So we talk about that, right? And we
Yeah.
talk about how he would go he would train with Brock and.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'd win, sometimes Brock would. That's how great he was. I mean, Jerry Briscoe told me way back then
Oh, yeah.
that this guy is the one with the
Pound for pound talent.
Yes, yeah.
Lesnar's the
He's
attraction.
so natural and gifted, and I think he fell into kind of like the Dean Ambrose situation where you came back, great look, great shape. They just didn't know what to do with you. So you kind of fell to the wayside, and it's really sad because him being in the Rumble, if he would have been in the Final Four, that would have got people talking.
No
Of
doubt about
oh,
it.
man, Shelton versus Brock at Mania?
Completely
This
agree.
could be legit. Or maybe put him against Bobby Lashley and have credible wrestlers going back and forth against each other. He has highlight reels of things. Like, they put moves in the video game that he came up with scaling the ladder. He's Mr. Money in the Bank. Like he's the only guy to not win Money in the Bank that should definitely have it. So it's just just ride it out, man.
I mean, he's making a living, so
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
But like you always say, creative satisfaction.
Creative satisfaction is highly underrated, and your money spends better when you have it. And Road Dogg commented on that, and I don't think he liked it. He said, "Well said, sir." He never calls me sir, so it was well said, sir. It's a work. Yeah, we all know it's like you have to tell me it's a work, but that doesn't mean that creative satisfaction is not highly underrated, and your money spends better when you have it. That's just true.
Yeah.
You know, and not every you can't. You know, hey, look, if you don't bring that much to the table, you don't get to, you know, like, sorry, your creative satisfaction isn't as important. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Like, some people can fight for it, and some people have to just put up with what's given to them, and a lot of it depends on what you bring to the table. You know,
Yeah.
so and your attitude, and you know how you go about complaining about things. Because like people, oh, this fucking sucks, and they don't bring a better idea to the table.
Fair.
So, you know, it goes both ways.
All right. Well,
you go.
moving on, we had some really good moments during Raw and SmackDown. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to start it off with Becky Lynch because that is one of the topics that we were talking about last week, which was Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Ronda. We were talking about the main event and who should it be a single, should it be a three-way, whatever. But one of the things that we should talk about first and foremost was the moment between Becky Lynch and Stephanie McMahon on Raw, and then the moment between Becky Lynch and Triple H on Raw. Basically, both SmackDown. Both Stephanie and Triple H want to get Becky Lynch to go out and check her knee. She basically told Stephanie on Raw no, then punched her in the face. Triple H
Which
tried
was
a different
great.
approach on SmackDown, tried to get under her skin, tried to say that she was afraid of facing Ronda. She was afraid of failure, which was really good.
It was great,
And basically, she said no and then slapped him across the face.
and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked how he sold it, and I liked how they continued to stare each other down, and I loved her, like the smile that she got, and then exit back the way she came.
How do we feel about Charlotte and all of this?
I think it's unfortunate because she's amazing, and she, you know, that was my vision. Like when I talk, you know, because
Yeah.
I've said this, and I don't want to keep going. Oh, you know, I said this back the day after WrestleMania, but like
Yeah.
I sat, and, you know, Ronda came down and sat next to me, and I told her, "You're going to be in main event of WrestleMania next year." And she was like, "Oh, that sounds great," or whatever. I'm like, "No, you will. Watch." So, and that was my, you know, I think everyone that thought that the way I do was like Charlotte versus Ronda,
Of course.
right?
'Cause Becky
And then,
didn't
God
heat up
damn it, Becky had to come in and fuck everything up.
Well, on the bright side, Charlotte is getting immense boos, and someone in a three-way, if the three-way happens, someone's got to be getting booed, and Charlotte's certainly going to be the one getting booed. So hey, there, and the way she was on
Hey,
SmackDown,
it doesn't always have to be that. It is more.
Yeah.
It is more ideal, but as long as they give a fuck about both people, as long as they really care, it still works. It's just what I think some of it has to do with, okay, you know, some things feel like, you know, I don't like to use the word entitled. Is that like some people thought that was automatically supposed to be
Yeah.
Charlotte, and I get it
But
because
she's
that
on
was
it.
the way I felt too. But I'm
But
like,
Charlotte as a heel is kind of owning that.
Yeah.
She's coming out and
Yeah.
acting entitled. That I'm Ric Flair's daughter.
and she's
therefore,
so great. God damn, she's
therefore
so
I
good.
should be main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I put this tweet out, and it was, you know, Charlotte just kills it on the mic every time. It doesn't sound like she's speaking lines that
Yeah.
that somebody wrote. Just like when you know, Elias and
Yeah.
you know, all of that. And although I did kind of want to mention that I don't like them going. Well, speaking of Elias, not to jump around here, but it just popped into my head. Speaking of Elias, like with the Road Dogg, Jeff Jarrett, Elias thing, the one thing I could have done without was them going, "Oh, what are you doing here, Road Dogg? Shouldn't you be tanking SmackDown ratings?" How does that help anything?
I don't know what that
How
was.
is that anything other than inside baseball? Like, let's have a few little chuckles for the for the inside baseball team here.
Also-
it's bullshit.
Also, it's like factually incorrect. If
Right.
if the rating by tank you mean a dip, Raw is the one with the dip. SmackDown, for whatever it is, has been a consistent.
Okay.
Has been a consistent
Yeah,
number.
and that, in spite of the fact that WrestleMania, like all the SmackDown versus Raw, like SmackDown got obliterated.
Yeah.
They got made to look like the
the
biggest
Survivor
pieces of
Series
shit
one.
ever. Yeah, or Survivor
The
Series.
Survivor Series showdown.
Yeah,
if you
sorry.
will.
Which is crazy because one of the reasons that McMahon's came back to
then-
television is because people weren't happy with Raw.
And then so SmackDown has to deal with that, with their guys just getting their asses handed to them, and then after the Royal Rumble, like you take SmackDown's post Rumble ratings bump by taking your top star and putting them on fucking Raw the night before.
Yeah. And Becky has appeared on Raw. And
Gee, I
SmackDown
wonder why
the opening-
SmackDown didn't get their post Royal bump. Well, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you took it and you gave it to Raw already.
But when SmackDown goes to Fox, does it become the A
I'm-
show then? 'Cause-
This is all very. Because as it looks right now, if there wasn't the SmackDown going to Fox deal, I would tell you, oh, this is the death of the brand extension completely. All this Triple
Hey.
H, Vince, and Stephanie appearing on both shows, and then Becky appearing on both shows, like that's step 3 in a 5-step process. Just be like, we're one brand again. We're one brand, one roster.
Well, we'll see what happens
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they do the international shakeup. They're doing that, right?
I haven't heard anything about it.
Oh.
I
read
wanted to
about that.
talk about some other things, but we gotta take a break and come back with Dave Lagana and talk about the Crockett Cup. But there was some other, like the halftime heat thing, that was
Halftime
great.
Heat was so good.
so much
That was
better.
great. And so let me just talk about that real quick. Oh, God damn it. Fucking phone. Sorry. You know, I don't even care like the last few weeks. Fuckity fuck.
As long
Okay.
as it's not the first 30
Count them
seconds.
up, everyone. Count them up.
So
Don't worry, I am.
So
It's his
no, I
channel.
was just gonna say, like, real quick, the halftime heat was spectacular. They never failed to outdo themselves over there, and the performance center looks fantastic as a
Yes.
venue on TV, and it should be used way more often. Okay, let's take a break and come back with Dave Lagana. Welcome back to X-Pac 12360, everyone. Joining us over the phone. Actually, he's Skyping in to make it sound better. Is the Vice President of the National Wrestling Alliance, and he's here to talk about this year's Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup Tag Team Tournament. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Lagana.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hey, man.
How are we?
Awesome. Hey, first of all, hey, just continued like props to everything that you guys are doing. I watch all the time, and on a side note, separate from the Crockett Cup stuff we're going to talk about, I really enjoyed the first episode of One Nation with Willie Mack. Sweet,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's
totally different feel from 10 Pounds of Gold, by the way.
yeah, and that was sort of the vibe, and I didn't love it. That's why I asked like people what did they think. I think it's got a lot of room to evolve.
Yes.
And I was talking to Willie about it. I want to put more of his personality into it as we grow, and that's why I want to use sort of the idea is almost to send Willie on his own with somebody with a camera and just let him
Yeah.
let his personality come out. And I think the hook of, he wants to go to 50 states and defend that title, and he's done 5. So we're on the way, so to speak. So it'll be interesting. I just bought. I don't know if anybody has, vlogging desires, but the new GoPro, the Hero 7 Black, is it's highly improved upon the GoPro technology. I actually saw Kevin Nealon does his hiking show on YouTube with it now, and it's
Oh wow,
sounds
I'm gonna have to
good.
get one.
Yeah, like
Wow.
if you want to shoot yourself, that's the way to do it, and we're testing it out here with Willie Mack.
Hey, before something I want to bring up right now before we
Yeah.
get into this, and I just want to give you, and I know I already said props about the other stuff, but major props. I've never seen anyone more willing to help anyone that wants to be helped on Twitter with following your dream, being a content creator, anything like that than you, Dave. And thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, it's. I wish this would have existed 10 years ago after my WWE time. Like, Sean, we always joke about, when writers at WWE are literally faceless people. I mean, even now, I just saw some guy left the WWE writing team.
Kazim.
I've never heard his name before
Yeah.
because they've made them so whatever. So now the ability that I can help somebody, and it's always my number one question. Well, how do I become a writer? I'm like, well, there's only so many writing jobs. I said, but there's so many. So learn a skill that you can use anywhere. And, like before we started, I talked about, obviously I do video work for Billy on the side for pumpkin stuff. The skill set I have now that I didn't have at WWE of being able to content create allows me to make content cheaper, faster, and honestly better than a lot of larger corporations that have to kind of get approval. And, driving costs down has really been sort of how we've been successful this year as far as our content strategy, because, I went to Jim Cornette's house 2 days ago to shoot the piece that went up yesterday, to turn that around in a day,
It used to be unheard of.
Yeah. The same way I went to Mick Foley's house. He's like, "Where's your crew?" I just turned around and said, "It's in my backpack." You know what I mean? Well, the fact that you can do it yourself, and I think that became sort of the buzzword of last year, like do it yourself. But legitimately, there's a program called Adobe Premiere, and they have a thing called Rush, not Roosh, who's in CMLL and Ring of Honor, that allows you to edit on your phone and really well. So it's all there if people want to do it. And the fact that you can buy that GoPro for, I think it's $399, and it's legitimately all you might need, and maybe a good light source for a certain amount of content creation. It's all right there. And the fact that independent wrestlers spend more on their gear than figuring out how they're going to communicate to an audience, to me, is a disappointing fact in 2019.
Yeah.
How's
Gotcha.
the audio on this GoPro?
I watched Casey Neistat and a few other people use it, and it's vastly improved. You know what I mean? Like it's good enough to vlog with. You know
Without a separate mic?
Without a separate mic.
That's really impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, and the problem with like phone stuff, it's got built-in stabilization. I gave it to I actually have to put this up. I gave it to Dalton Castle at one of the last Ring of Honor events, and he's literally running with it, like running full speed, and it's stabilized.
Jeez.
And so it just allows you to be able to create much more on the fly, much more intimately. And the problem with like doing stuff on your phone is it's clunky. It's the especially like I can tell when somebody shoots something on their iPhone because and I get too technical, like the iris, like it gets blown out, or like you could just like iPhones have like this white haze on some of the video stuff. Like it allows you to upgrade in a way that you just couldn't back in the day.
Yeah.
So.
And were you gonna say something?
Well, I've been one of those guys that has slid in Dave's DMs and gotten advice from him, and I really appreciate that. That's why I love listening and getting able to talk to him.
Well, Dave, that's why I brought this up. And when I said thank you, I wasn't just thanking you for all the other people you've helped, because you've helped me too. And I just wanted to tell you that. So
no, it's really like I was on the AfterBuzz panel in 2011 with Jensen Karp, who's now on K-Rock and Maria Canales
from the Burbank house.
No, it was out in Encino.
Yeah, from the Burbank house.
Oh, it's right.
Burbank Boulevard. Yeah. You probably did that in my exact bedroom in that house.
All I remember is a popcorn machine there, and I ate all the popcorn. So it was a good time.
All right. So Crockett Cup, Dave. That was one of my favorites, like of all the wrestling extravaganzas when from the Crockett period of, the mid '80s.
It's interesting because I grew up I discovered the NWA in 1985 via I think it was Channel 17 in Philadelphia, WPHL with Worldwide, and then the 605 show, and there's Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. The first Crockett Cup was '86 in the Superdome in Louisiana as a co-promotion, and it was this idea they had as a big show, and to have all these tag teams in and to be able to bring it back under the same almost guise of this co-promotion with Ring of Honor. We announced it without having a co-promotion. And our idea with Crockett Cup is we want to involve as many different promotions as possible. And, we're hoping to announce more as soon as hopefully tomorrow or Friday for when general tickets go on sale. And legitimately, we're open to working with anybody. You know what I mean? Like to be in this tournament, because I think if anything, the last year proved that's what fans want. And the more people become insulated, the harder it becomes for the fans to get what they want. And they want to see this guy fight that guy. And I think this gets to do that. The fact that, I mean, we've only got 2 teams announced, and one is, you know, Crimson and Jax Dane, who are from the NWA / Tried and True Pro Wrestling, and, you know, the Villain Club from ROH. I mean, PCO is legitimately one of the most insane people I've ever seen wrestle in 2019. I've been to his Ring of Honor matches, and I can't imagine what he's going to try and do in this tournament, let alone potentially 3 times if he advances. So,
sure. So, you know, like thinking back, and I'm assuming that it, like I think you just were saying that's like you try to bring, you know, all these different teams. I remember the cool thing for me was, okay, you had like the Armstrongs, Bob and Brad, you know, I mean, teams like that. Like, I was like, you know, you heard of them, but you hadn't seen them. You see them in the magazines, you know, they're like fabulous ones, different people from all the different, like, you know, territories that still existed. But but seemed to kind of at that point, maybe we're starting to kind of get neglected.
Yeah, I think especially because I know Cornette actually, when I went and shot Cornette on Monday, he had, of course, has all the programs.
Right.
So flipping through the program from the first year to the third year, I don't want to say it was hot garbage, but it might have been room temperature garbage.
Yeah.
You know, it like as
Third
far
year,
as, because obviously at that point in '88, you know, it was one company, and like, I mean, you can flip through, like Mighty Wilbur was like, it was just, it was a very strange collection. But the genesis of the first year, you know, the Batten twins came from Kansas City. There was a team from Portland. Memphis sent 2 teams. Like, and I think that's the interesting part. And, you know, I like, people are like, well, who are in the NWA talent wise? Like, that's the point is we want to bring in as much talent from various places and create what would be an event that you're not going to get anywhere else. And the ability to like, our partnership with Ring of Honor obviously fell off of our involvement in All In.
Right.
And once we saw sort of what Ring of Honor is able to do from an infrastructure perspective, you know, as we discussed sort of this one-off event, this is a handshake deal to do this one event together. But, you know, my history with Ring of Honor, you know, their appreciation of what Billy wants to do, and that we're not trying to rule the universe. We're trying to create good content one show at a time. And this is literally our 3rd show. And, you know, we've been very happy with the grassroots success of the first 2. And the fact that, you know, we can move forward into a 3rd one that could involve up to 5 different promotions is a really unique prospect.
Now, the previous Crockett Cups, they had 16 teams. We have 2 so far, like you mentioned, Villain Enterprises, War Kings. Are we planning on 16 teams again for this one, or can you not let us know?
If it actually was 24 teams, I believe, the first 2 years.
Okay.
The format, we've got 3 different formats that we're looking at, and it's really going to depend on the amount of quality teams we can have. I mean, I think it's definitely a one-night tournament. It's a 4-hour event from 7 to 11. You know, so. That's the window we're working in. We want to put on the best version of this show as possible. It won't be. I don't think it'll be a 16-team one-night tournament.
Hey,
I'll say that much.
Okay. I'm curious because, you know, on the other Crockett Cups, there was always an NWA World Title match to go along with it. Is there going to be this time?
I think we're looking at that. Obviously, you know, I think it depends on where Nick Aldis sits in storyline.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. You know, I think Flair did defend every year. I know that the best world title match he had was with Wyndham, I think, in the Baltimore year.
Yeah.
I think
another one was Nikita, or who was it?
Nikita was the 3rd year, and then Dusty was the 1st.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think Nick was looking at the landscape, and, you know, what kind of achievement would it be for Nick Aldis to win back this first Crockett Cup back in this era if he could find the right partner? And I think
I see what you're saying.
Wow.
Okay.
You know, like he might be selfish enough. You know, when is the world not enough for you know, Nick Aldis? And I think that story will evolve. The same with a Willie Mack. You know what I mean?
Yes.
How interesting would it be if Willie and Nick were a team? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, there's a lot of interesting pairings in this that's possible because I mean
Yeah.
there are no two people that are more NWA than those two right now. So
Because like, okay, when we think about it, it's not like, okay, this is a tournament to crown new tag team champions. This is a one night, hey, we won this tag team tournament, and then we can go our separate ways.
yeah, I mean I
Yeah.
think the good part about the cup is, it's very much the Stanley Cup. And, we talk about the 10 pounds of gold being our version of the Stanley Cup as far as a trophy that everyone wants. And the fact that everyone has this sort of warm and fuzzy feeling about a tournament that was maybe good for 2 straight years shows the power of the prize.
Yeah.
And, wins and losses are great, but ultimately there has to be a prize at the end of the rainbow for these journeys we go on. And, I'm I'm a big believer that there are too many titles in wrestling, as everyone knows, if you follow me. I think that the prizes need to matter. And the fact that we're able to resurrect a cup, you know what I mean? And we're working on getting as close to the original version of the cup as possible because it meant something.
Yeah.
It really did. Here we are talking about it almost 30 years later. And, it only happened 3 times and it was never gone back. And the fact that we were able to get the Crockett family to sign off, and, the Crockett Foundation does really amazing stuff for wounded warriors in the Charlotte area. So that's why this whole thing works so well. And to be able to bring back, all of those legends and to have Jim Cornette and to do it right in the shadows of Charlotte, North Carolina, which, I need to look and see the last time the NWA ran an event in a venue in North Carolina with
A real
the
venue.
logo and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's quite humbling for Billy and I joke with Cornette as he's showing pictures of Sam Mushnick and Lou Thez. I said, I wonder if Sam Mushnick would roll over in his grave knowing the names Corgan and Lagana now in the lineage of these guys. And that's why we're so loyal to what this brand was, because people care about it. And Sean, obviously you're a huge fan and everyone that grew up with it. And that's our goal, to honor those who grew up with it, but also make it relevant and deliver it in a way that people watch content in 2019.
You know what the thing is, okay, I look at it like this. I'm grateful that there are 2 people like yourself and Billy that can look at this thing, not through the same eyes as everyone else has before. It's a new way of looking at things, just like your approach to the whole NWA and how you're presenting it and what it actually is. And I was kind of curious, because it's such an unconventional way of doing this, has it been hard to explain things and how you actually, operate and I can imagine something like ROH, for instance. Are they like, what are you guys all about even?
I think the best way to state it is those who've gotten it on the first conversation are the ones that are most likely to do things with
Right.
us, especially quickly. So Nick Aldis, Nick's done various interviews where he talks about this phone call that I had with him in June of 2017 when we got the brand,
Right.
and he got it immediately. His mindset of the big fight feel and, the things. I always ask people, what do you watch? How do you watch it? And why do you enjoy it? Because, I'm somewhat critical of the WWE format, has been exactly the same since 1998.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's the same exact format. And it works for them. They just signed $1 billion deal with Fox that they're literally talking about at their Television Critics Association right now, and talking about more programming for WWE on their Fox cable networks. So their format works for them, but we can't do that format. So, the people we talk to, like Nick, he got it. He dove all the way in. Tim Storm, the same way. Willie Mack never asked a question. He just wanted to work, and he wanted a shot. Those who do, great. There were multiple talents that we spoke to about being in roles with us over the first 2 years. Some just didn't get it. Billy and I pitched this concept without the NWA when we left TNA. That was that rumored meeting that came out to be true. We pitched, we want to be a production company. We want to help get talents over.
Yes.
And so when the timing came around this time with Ring of Honor, they get it. So that's where the Pinnacle series came from. It's 10 pounds of gold, but in the ROH world. And the idea with that is to make that even different. And trust me, it is it is a real mind screw at times trying to make sure these shows all feel different when, one person is doing them with their team, to make sure that they're good. But
I liken that to, like, and I know this is different, but it's still a comparison. A seamstress, like the seamstresses in WWE.
Yep.
You can tell, like, okay, I can tell when I look at one of the guys, I can tell which seamstress made their gear.
Wow.
Yeah. So and it's hard. It's hard to get, So I totally get what you're saying.
I've done 46 10 pounds of gold. I did one nation, and I've done, I think, 5 or 6 pinnacles. And, and then, like, but yesterday I'm working on a Josephus video, his follow-up to getting his head shaved by David Arquette, and it's absurd. It doesn't look like the same person did these. You know what I mean? And that's the goal of being as versatile as possible. And you just have to try stuff. And the good part is about our world, there's no failing. You know what I mean? Like, there's no failure because we've driven our costs down so much that it's all just possible. You know what I mean? I don't have to run if I were to run a live 2-hour show right now, and it's $500,000 to do 2 hours of television for a cable network with truck, talent, flights, all that stuff, a 50-man roster, WWE spends more on one TV taping than we've spent in half.
They spend $20,000 on catering. I just read that, and I believe it too.
Well, and I haven't been in that catering room in 11 years, but it's there. Once you have an economy and a lifestyle you have to carry forward, you have to maintain it. We've built a very lean operating system here because I'm a big believer in looking at very successful startups. And I don't know if I told this story with you guys before, but I looked at the way Airbnb was built. And, there are many podcasts to talk about it, but those guys literally, they were a startup company in San Francisco, but all of their housing was in New York. So their investor said, why are you in San Francisco? Go to New York and literally talk to every one of the people that are renting houses and who are the renters and find out what they like and what they don't. And that's how we've looked at this last year. And, people can go, well, how are you guys making money? How are you doing this? We've built a formula that allows us to pop up anytime we want. We've been sort of half dormant since the pop-up show on purpose, right? Because we wanted, when this Crockett Cup thing hit, to really push hard this event. And today was the first day of pre-sale through ROH. I'm happy with the numbers. Am I ecstatic? No, but it's a good start. And, this is an event that will sell to various different groups of fans. And I think it's all in the timing and the trust we've built with our audience.
Hey, Dave, curious, what's the venue hold?
The venue right now is scaled for 2,100. Okay. But if we sell all those, we can push the curtain back and do 4,000. And we scaled it for 2 ways, and I will be ecstatic at 2,000. You know what I mean? I'll be ecstatic if we beat what we did to NWA 70. This is a much different event. NWA 70, we had the huge rematch off of All In of Cody and Nick Aldis. Right. We don't have that here, so we want to see. That's why it was so important to get that first set of legends out, so people knew, wait, the Midnights and Rock and Roll are going to be there, and your mind starts to race. And no, they're not going to wrestle, but the idea that they're going to be there, these guys are assets in that area, especially, the Jim Crockett Promotions era is such an amazing story. And, getting to spend time with Dusty and literally getting to spend 2 hours on the phone with Nikita Koloff last week was like a dream come true for me because of how much watching them, formed my wrestling love back in the 80s.
You show it to You show it to
Yeah.
What was
exactly.
Was that even a word? Anyways,
but
I love Nikita.
Yeah. And he still looks great, sounds great. Same with Magnum. Magnum cut the promo he cut at NWA 70 was one of the best promos of the year. And Billy went up to him after. He goes, I saw the light go on. He goes, I just went out there and started talking, and it all just came right back. You know what I mean? Like,
that's real. When it's real, man, it just flows.
Cornette did that promo, and he did 2 takes. The first take, my card ran out because we had talked so much on the previous stuff. But his second take was even better. I didn't edit one word of it. I just covered some of it with B-roll. Like, these guys, because Sean, you understand that, like, you used to talk. every week you go do local promos.
Yeah.
You would do all this stuff, and it's my biggest gripe to talent now. They don't cut promos. And then I hear just give guys bullet points. We used to give guys bullet points at TNA. We give them 3 bullet points, and they'd say 3 sentences. And it's just like, no, like, opportunity. And then they come back to like, I wanted more match time. I said, yeah, but no one cared about your match
Right.
because you didn't get them invested in your promo. That's why I love the way we sit in technology now. There's no wrong, like Dalton Castle has one of the most entertaining YouTube shows, and it gets 0 love because it's just, I guess it's not covered in the same way that other YouTube shows are. And but every week he commits to it. It's spectacular. You know what I mean? As far as it's him, he's doing it, and his personality comes through every week in this show. Everyone should be attempting to create content in a weekly basis in some form or fashion. Even if you're just cutting promos on what your match is that weekend, you're doing a disservice to the promoters that are paying you if you're not promoting their events. And sending the poster out with 30 other faces on it, it's dumb. It's just stupid. If that's, and you're just going to get passed by who's somebody who's more talented and more willing to do more.
So, Dave, with the Crockett Cup, will it be available on IPPV or on the Honor Club?
To be determined. We're working out. It's why we haven't stated. Most likely, I'd assume Honor Club. It may be on. It may just be a pay-per-view only on Fight. We're working on it. The show's a 50-50 partnership with us and Ring of Honor. So we're going to do what is best for all fans. My guess is if it's on pay-per-view, it'll be on Honor Club after the event. We want to offer the best possible experience for the fans to watch it how they want. A lot of people prefer Fight. The fact that New Japan allowed the Wrestle Kingdom to be on Fight when you could have used New Japan World, it shows that people have different desires on how they watch content, and people trust different services for different reasons. Yeah. Some people don't want to be on a streaming service. They want to buy one show and feel good about it. So the roundabout answer is we're working on it, but it will be available to the widest potential audience.
I think you should just put it out on DVD and that's it, just like PWG.
You know what we're going to do? How great would it be if the only way we did it was if we put it out on VHS? And Sean, you might
Son
remember
of a
gonna
this.
say that.
People don't remember,
Had
so
tape
like
trade.
those Crockett VHSs, it was like 6 to 8 weeks after the event before you'd have to send your COD or they used to do COD.
Yeah.
You'd send your money order or check, and Dust used to tell me there was just some guy that had all these VCRs in his garage and was dubbing it, and depending on how high he got was how many dubs he got done that day.
That's how, and that was like, and it was sold under Turner Home Entertainment.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Hey,
So,
like Coliseum Video. Do you remember? Do you know the history was behind them?
Weren't they sort of quasi porn?
Yeah,
Wasn't
absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
because and it was smart for WWF because honestly, who knows that better? Who knows who's always ahead of the curve when it comes to video distribution and shit like that? Adult entertainment industry.
I just bought a VR headset. I tried out the WWE VR thing, which if you've not tried VR, if you're interested in it. The Oculus, they have like a $200 headset that's very easy to use. And I'm not sure the name. I think it's Next VR does all the WWE or they do the big WWE pay-per-views. Yeah. It is a vastly different viewing experience. I don't know if I could watch a whole show that way, but man, because it's quasi 3D.
Is it like you're sitting in the crowd?
It's like
you're on the ring apron.
Oh. Oh, wow.
It's really it is. And they have like a little bit of Ronda and Charlotte from Survivor Series, and it's like watching it a completely different way. And VR, I think consumer VR is still 10 years away, and I think the headsets will go away, and then once they sort of figure out a way to sort of either put lighter glasses on.
I was going to say, what about AR glasses? You know that AR stuff they're starting to show on the WWE TV shows? Imagine if you're sitting in the crowd with AR glasses on and you see that shit while you're sitting in the crowd.
Well, I actually, as I got this thing, I'm like, all right. So I watched a whole Netflix movie with this headset because the way that it projects in there is it's like a 150-inch television in front of you. So
Yeah.
like I'm getting to be blind as a bat in my young age that I'm at now, and like this was great. And you know, the YouTube has a bunch of 360 stuff, and you know, like I think pro wrestling is still 10 years away. Hell, pro wrestling's still living in 2011 in various ways
A lot
as
of
far
ways,
as the content's created. You know, but VR is an interesting way to kind of explore, you know, different stuff. And you know, I have one small sort of consumer VR camera that I've messed with. It's really interesting, and I just think storytelling has gone in various different ways. It reminds me of very much like 1996 web browsing, as far as like it's not. You definitely can tell there's a lot of crap out there. Like there's a woman that shows how to twerk. Like she has a whole twerking channel. Like okay, this will get boring after 5 minutes or 5 hours, depending on what you're into. And you know, like it will grow, but you have to be open to exploring it. And I think overall the overall lesson is people are putting their time into different stuff. So sitting and watching a 3-hour wrestling broadcast, you have so many other choices you could do. If you didn't like Raw in 1998, you had a choice. You could flip to Nitro. Now, if I don't like this segment, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch something for 5 minutes till the next segment comes up. And people are deciding minute to minute how they spend their day.
Yeah. Hey, you know, Dave, I want to go. I just, you know, when I was asking you a little bit ago, you know, about like, you know, and you were talking about, you know, the people that got it, kind of got on the first, you know, conversation or whatever. Like, I just want to, like, for people that don't get it, like, what's that company, Tried and True?
Yeah,
in Nashville? Like, okay, for instance, like, you guys put eyes and ears on that promotion that never would have seen them before, ever. And I dare say even ROH, as great as they are, and as you know, the footprint or whatever you call it already, like, you know, in the industry, I think that like still some people will come and see their product because of you and Billy and NWA.
If you look at and you know, Billy and I have had multiple meetings with Joe Koff and Greg Gilliland, and you know, Joe and Greg are very smart. They, you know, to get a corporation to invest in pro wrestling, you know, look at the companies that have invested in pro wrestling in the last 40 years. Very few. I mean, you know, as I don't want to say small, Lucha Underground was invested in by, you know, Mark Burnett. Here's the #1 television producer in the world, and while successful to a niche audience, did not break through in a mainstream. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's a lot of different executions that have been tried in wrestling all the way back to, I mean, you know, 1990. You know what I mean? When Turner bought WCW, you know, it took them 6 years to figure it out. You know, what's interesting about the Ring of Honor story is, you know, originally it was Cornette and Gary Juster and Dan Bynum that, you know, sold this vision of what Ring of Honor is. It's evolved. And I was telling Cornette, I said, it's a completely different company that was there in 2011 and 2012. You know, Ring of Honor has built this really good infrastructure, but I think people have forgotten sort of the legacy of what that company has built. And that's one of the things with Pinnacle that we're trying to pull across is, like Seth Rollins and Claudio Castagnoli or Cesaro and Chris Hero and Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and like the history that has come through.
Yeah, they need to own that more.
Yeah, and that's basically the storytelling we're talking about, because honestly, the list of men who've held the Ring of Honor World title is better from 2002 till now than the NWA title.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And that's interesting as these two companies align this way, is because this is where these brands fit, and Ring of Honor has been very open to it, and you know, everyone there has been really super cool about it. And the good part is there's no egos there now. And you know, I sat and did an interview with Juice Robinson, you know, and Juice really embodies that lifeblood thing is not a gimmick. He believes in that style of wrestling, and the people he's assembled around him are people that also believe in what Ring of Honor is good for. And so like that story will be told in an upcoming Pinnacle. And
I think Juice Robinson, like heavyweight guys, like right now out there, one of my favorites. And I just you know, what he's bringing, like how he's presented himself and all that, you know, I just love it, and I think he's world champion material down the road. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's the, and sitting the. I've spoken to him on and off. I actually had forgotten this conversation. When he decided to leave WWE, he still had his Twitter account,
Yeah.
and I think Dusty had told him to reach out to me at some point. And I tell him, because he's the forgotten one that left WWE on his own.
Yep.
Before everybody else did it, he was like one of the first ones, I think in 2011 or 2012. He bet on himself
That's
to go
right.
and be to the New Japan dojo with no guarantee. And having him tell this story, he is humble but focused, and he is like that guy has charisma,
Yeah.
and he'll find it. And it just takes time. And I think Ring of Honor is a perfect place in combination with New Japan, and it's really interesting to see these talents out here in the marketplace, and they're not solely motivated by money.
Yeah.
Yes, money is important, but they want to show their standing in the business to really leave an impact, because money definitely is very important. But if you have all the money in the world and you're not happy in your job, I think you see what's happening with some people not being happy with their place of employment.
Well, that's funny you say that, Dave, because I put a tweet out the other night, and it said creative satisfaction is highly underrated, and your money spends much better when you have it. And,
Yes.
and I got it. Like Road Dogg saw it, and he didn't like it too much.
Well, and that's I mean, if you've talked to Nick Aldis,
Yes.
Nick is a businessman, but he understood the long game of what this NWA thing was, and I give him a lot of credit in the world. He could have easily stayed at Impact, back when they restarted under
Yeah.
Jeff, and made a decent salary, maybe more than he would have made in the last year with us, but he is now standing in a place that. The one thing that we're looking to do, especially with main events, is to pay on the house.
Yeah.
Like the St. Louis, like the old St. Louis model. It's going to take some time to get there, but if you're in the main event, you're going to make more than the opening match. It's just how it should be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
That's crazy. Like people that think everyone should get the same pay. That's silly. Sorry.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, what is that even? I mean, I get it. I get the
my rate is this.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we book NWA 70 the way we were, the only match we had advertised was the world title match, and that sold the majority of the tickets. So Cody and Nick's payday was based on the tickets they sold, and and the attraction. So when guys were like, "Well, my payoff should have been more," I said, "You weren't even advertised for the show. Why? How
Yeah.
can you say that you this is your rate, which is fine? But,
and if you didn't agree to some kind of fee beforehand, what are you even talking about?
That's the point. And some people wanted experience, and everybody has different ways to approach how they do their business. I got in a little discussion with somebody of you should never work for free. Well, you should make your decision on where you work, how you work,
That's right.
and for what you work for. In 2009, after I left WWE, I worked my first day at Ring of Honor for free because at the time Kerry Sokin didn't understand. He thought that HDNet at the time was going to produce the show and help him, and then he realized, nobody there actually knows wrestling. So I was able to translate both sides, and both sides were so happy that they ended up paying me for that day, but I didn't go in asking for it, and ultimately ended up with a 2-year job. That. If I would have asked for my fee up front, I most likely wouldn't have had. Yeah. Sometimes you have to prove value. That's what this last 18 months of the NWA has been. We didn't ask for $1 before NWA 70. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't put it out for T-shirts. We didn't have a Kickstarter. We didn't have a Patreon. We wanted fans to fall back in love with something that people loved before, and I think that's what's happened. And again, Crockett Cup, we have 2 tag teams there, and we're already selling tickets.
Right. Yeah.
And without matches announced or an attraction, it's something that people love. And I think that is a missing element in various bits of marketing nowadays. People need to really like or love something and have an emotional attachment to understand why the money doesn't matter. It's the experience you give them.
And Dave, I think one of the reasons tickets are already selling is obviously the Crockett Cup is the history, but people trust you and Billy now. You guys are so hands-on. Speaking firsthand, every time NWA comes to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, there's an extra buzz around the entire event that day. NWA's here. So many eyes are going to be on this. And I imagine that's got to be the same with every promotion that you take the NWA to.
Yeah, it's been really an interesting experience. various places and people's expectations, and going back to people who don't get it. One promoter booked Nick and was like, it didn't do anything for us. I was like, well, what do you mean it didn't do anything for you? He's like, well, it didn't. I said, it's really what you make out of it. You know what I mean? And though, Dave Marquez obviously understands the power of the NWA. Ring of Honor understands it. WWE understands it. If you go on the network and their hidden gems, they understand the stitching that the NWA has in its timeline. Cody Rhodes got it. Look at the success of his match at All In. Compared to everything else on that show, he understood how his moment would stand with that title, as opposed to him and Nick Aldis wrestling without the history.
Yeah.
It would have been a great match, but he understood the value of that history and that list. And people, it's hard for me now to look at the WWE title, because I feel like because they've split the belt so much, it's hard to imagine the value of it. Versus,
there's no sentiment. There's no it's the lineage. It's been splintered into a bunch of pieces. Yeah.
It's hard because I think anybody that was a wrestling fan from 1982 to 1997 easily could list every WWF champion.
Yeah.
And it's hard now. I'd have to really think about it, and that's okay. But I think audiences. It's people can list off who won the Super Bowl every year. It's important. Certain things are important. And then when you get down to the niche thing, you're always going to have super fans who want the Italian Missouri middleweight title, and they're going to be super passionate about it. But that is a very niche audience, and there are businesses built on niche audiences, but you have to start at something that everyone understands, and the biggest, largest audience understands World's Championships. It's why the Super Bowl draws, except for this year, which I think anyone cared, because I think the story was hard in the Super Bowl. You got all right, the Patriots lost last year, so you're not going to be rooting to see them lose again, because now you're going to feel bad. I just didn't feel anything for the Rams. I just, I didn't understand their story on a global scale, and then the game sucked.
Yeah.
So it's So of course the Super Bowl is going to be disappointing. But everyone remember that what you walk away with the headline: the Patriots won their 6th Super Bowl. So people remember those things, and I think that's what we're looking to attach with our brand and all that stuff.
Well, speaking of the teams in this Crockett Cup, are there going to be any intergender tag teams involved?
No,
not at all.
No.
Jim Cornette's doing the announcing. Jimbo.
You never know. They're trying to do things different.
Yeah, well, but I mean, come on, Jimbo. Jim has to actually feel good about what, and I'm not giving an opinion one way or another on what I think of it. It's just, I can't see Jim doing that. That's all.
Jim asked 3 questions that I will not ask you, but he was like, X, Y, and Z are happening at this Crockett Cup, then it's not something I would really like to be behind. And I let him know that X, Y, and Z weren't happening.
No dick flipping.
Was Y including the Young Bucks?
No.
No,
Any
I don't see
involvement
that.
with AEW and possibly having them there?
I think we're open to working with whoever wants to work with us. Is the best way I can answer that question.
That's a great way to answer it.
Okay.
Dave, you guys.
We've never turned down. We've talked to everybody, and it's really in the hands of the people in charge of every company that if they want to participate. Ring of Honor had no problem because we've built a partnership with them.
Hey, so Dave, since you said that we've talked to everyone, have you talked to WWE?
I think the discussions are open.
I'm just curious if you've already talked to them
Jim
at all.
Cornette having the revival in the Crockett Cup.
Oh my God.
But isn't that what's really interesting to wrestling fans? Like there's so many shows. There's so many shows that I don't want to say don't matter, but it's hard to make people care. And there's 52 Raws, 52 SmackDowns, 52 NXTs, 6 takeovers, 12 pay-per-view events, and that's just one company. Then you got Impact, and then you got this company and that company. To make people care, it's really hard. And the fact that an event could come up that people would really care, and we'll find an audience for that. And that's where this is nice, is based upon our scale, selling 1,600 tickets to NWA 70 and grossing $100,000, nobody's going to sneeze at that for a singular event.
That's right.
NXT does that same type of number. New Japan did less than that in Nashville. It's unique that this is happening, and we're not out there pounding our chest that we're going to change the world. We just want to go back to something that we think people really enjoyed and offer something different. And that's just, every company should have a mission statement of what they're looking to do. And you go back and listen to Billy and I in October of 2017, we laid this exact vision out. And people joked, 20-year plan. We're executing our 20-year plan because we have a vision we really like. And the NWA has a warm and fuzzy feeling of Dusty Rhodes and Lou Thez and Harley Race. And I'm going to go see Dory Funk Jr. on Friday with Nick. Nice. And that's the really important part of Nick. And I want to make sure people really understand how much he's involved and really helped shape the vision, because Nick is in line with those men who carried that title, from Harley Race to Dory Funk to Ric Flair to Dusty Rhodes to Ricky Steamboat. He is the champ now, and they all call him that. And it's weirdly humbling to see this be passed down this way. It's a tradition. That's why I always say tradition and legacy, and now honor, because everyone honors what this company stands for. And it's not just sort of flavor of the month. It proves that retro can be forward.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you guys did do this, because and nothing against those folks for trying, but all the attempts at keeping the NWA alive, in the 2000s, and and all that, and then even in the late 90s, it's nice to see you bring some dignity back to this.
Well, and it's
I hate to put it that way, but man,
no, it's the thing is I joked that the NWA was a girl that everyone had a turn with. And
wow,
and they all used it for
slut shaming NWA, are we?
Well, the best way to say it is everybody like I talked to all these promoters, and it was just really about them. And it's to me, there's a higher responsibility. Even Vince looks upon this company that he has, that his father founded. You know what I mean? He carries forward on a daily basis the brand that his father created. And that is a huge responsibility. Yeah. And it's why the history of WCW and ECW is never celebrated, because this is his legacy. And now, while the NWA is not Billy and I's lifelong legacy, it's something we take very seriously. And, the people that had the NWA before, I really wasn't sure what they were attempting to do. I think they were kind of trying to, it's a territory system. Well, okay, but how? You're not even get along.
Yeah.
If you can get 10 people to agree to where to go want to eat, let alone pick who the NWA US champion should be, it was all self-motivated. And by the way, that's their businesses. Their business wasn't aligned to be this way. That's why when Bruce Tharpe ended up with it under sole control, it was the diamond in the rough that we saw going, this could mean something under a singular control, but we're willing to work with anybody. That title, Nick Aldis has proved, showing up everywhere that he's shown up with it, that it is interesting. Interesting point. Last WrestleMania, Nick Aldis sat ringside for the Marty Scurll, Dalton Castle ROH match. And as always, I'm always right there with whoever the champion is shooting. And Nick walks out, and it's Magnus, 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 everywhere he goes. Nobody calling him by his real name.
Right.
Here we are at All In. Nobody called him Magnus. Mm-hmm. That is an interesting way to look at how this is spread. The Magnus name. So when people discovered this, he's not Magnus anymore. He's Nick Aldis,
which is a pretty cool name already. Anyways, I don't even know why he needed Magnus in the first place. So.
But that's what's interesting, to watch this transition at a grassroots level, one person at a time. It's why I spend so much time talking to people, because one, I like their feedback. Two, and what people tell you isn't really what they're feeling. Oh, I didn't like this match. Okay, what didn't you like about it? Well, I wanted this guy to get it. Why? Well, I care more about this brand over here. So, that has nothing to do with that match. I always try to talk with people and get to the root of it. And I think that's what finding an ideal customer is. And I think what we're trying to attempt is to find an ideal customer that is looking for something different, that means something to them, and provide them content in a way that is different than the marketplace, and not just matches for the sake of matches.
Yeah.
Well said.
Crockett Cup, April 27th, Concord, North Carolina.
Hey, Dave, is there anything you guys want to
I have one
Dave real
last
quick?
question,
Go ahead.
actually. You recently had a pop-up in January, I believe. I wanted to know if you guys had any more plans to do any more pop-up events.
Yeah, and I think the good part about the pop-up event is it allows us to, at any time, do any type of an event. And the reason that brand existed is, we look at events like Crockett Cup as sort of, I don't want to say A-level events, but big super show type events. The pop-up event was put out there because I think the standard live event experience is standard. You know what I mean? Like you go to a WWE live event, it's a perfectly fine wrestling show that has no impact on the timeline moving forward or backward. When we do a pop-up event, we want it to be something that has some sort of cultural relevance. And if you look at the Josephus David Arquette hair match, that will forever be the attraction of that first one. And while we had a great world title match with Nick Aldis and James Storm, the pop-up event existed in this way that something unique happened at it that you would remember. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do a pop-up event that is a panel event with Nikita Koloff and Magnum TA where they talk through their best of 7 series. That might be a pop-up type event. That brand allows us to literally pop up whatever. We might just put that logo up somewhere and say, event here in 2 days, come free of charge, NWA pop-up event.
Yeah.
Like that's what allows that branding to be something completely different. It's why we made it so unique of a logo. It's the original logo with a splash of red to catch your eye that this is something you should keep an eye on.
Hey, I wanted to, real quick, just because I know you guys got some pushback when you announced that David Arquette was going to be a part of that show. And I, and maybe some people might not have actually attended because of that, but I'm pretty sure the ones that did became believers. I mean, the guy, come on, man. David Arquette's out there, busting his ass, and he's bringing more eyes and ears onto your product, and he's respecting the industry.
I have a long-standing relationship with David. I met David in 2000 when he was the WCW World Champion, and I was working on Friends. He used to come to set, and we'd talk wrestling. I reconnected with him 10 years later, and I think I've told the story before. In 2009 or 2010, HDNet was exploring to do the first ever 3D pro wrestling match. Like they wanted to do a whole show in 3D. Remember 3D was like the craze for about 10 minutes in entertainment.
We were going to
discuss.
Sorry, I'll tell you in a second. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's
Sorry.
what I discussed with David wrestling Adam Pearce for the NWA World Title on the 10-year anniversary of him winning the world title as an attraction in 3D as a thing. David is a huge wrestling fan. And honestly, the story, I was happy people were upset because it's polarizing stories are what get attention now. Yep. Just doing the safe, booking the same matches everywhere. And honestly, the story we told with David was right on point with I didn't really shine a heavy light on the death match, but here, Josephus's point was nobody wants you in the wrestling business.
Right.
So people galvanized, and honestly, David sold tickets. In
That's what I was
Clarksville,
getting
Tennessee,
at.
which doesn't have David. Stars don't go to Clarksville, Tennessee. So David did media in there, and people were still showing up. Ticket time was 7:00. At 9:20. People were still showing up buying tickets because they had heard that David Arquette was wrestling in town and heard this hair match and had seen the press conference footage and heard the radio interview and saw all this stuff. And it drew in the town. We did 1,149 paid in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, and David was happy to do it. I got an email today from them. They want to do more. Are we? It's going to depend. Yeah. But David is in love with this business, and anyone who craps on him, I why don't you like him? Well, he killed WCW. If you believe that, you either need glasses to understand history, or you need to watch some tape. He didn't kill it. No one person killed a wrestling company. Thousands of bad decisions.
Not even Vince Russo.
And to follow up your
it's
point,
it's not fair to blame him either.
And to follow up your point, one of the biggest turnouts we've ever had for a taping was when Arquette and RJ City fought, and that was Arquette.
And by the way, we live in an attraction-based business now.
I know, Mark. I see the sign, Mark. Thank you. Keep going.
Attraction-based. Ronda, 2 years ago, Ronda Rousey in WWE. People were, it's a one-off. She spent a year busting her ass, and now is most likely going to main event WrestleMania. Does she not deserve it? Guess what? It's part of the story. We need antagonists and protagonists. That is what makes good stories. If you just have two of the same people fighting with the same perspective, that doesn't make people don't fight wars when they have the same perspective and think the same ways. You need to have conflict. Conflict makes everything go.
There you go.
And that's the way I look at it. That conflict makes everything go.
Oh, real quick, your 3D thing, it reminded me. The Milton Wilpon, one of the Wilpon family that owned the
Oh, I remember this.
the Mets. You remember they were going to start like a wrestling company, or that guy?
Oh yeah, everybody. My roommate at the time, I was living with Lizzie Valentine. She had a contract.
Yeah.
Smiley, right? Like
Myself and
show me your
Kevin,
contract.
myself and Kevin Nash, and that was one of the things was it was going to be in 3D. It brought my. It came up. You just brought that back up, that memory back up. Anyways,
Yeah.
enough about that. That was a whole different weird story.
But it's what's funny is like there's all like starting a wrestling company. Any startup is hard, and starting a wrestling company because wrestling has a lot of people have a lot of opinions if they watch wrestling or not.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard business, and this is a master class in business that I've taken over the last 18 months, let alone not only creating content, but running a business, putting people under contract. We have 3 talents under contract right now. And, we started with 1 and we'll expand as we grow. But people are working for different reasons, and everyone's got a different reason, from Willie Mack to Camille to Nick Aldis to me to Billy. We all have a reason we're like this, and I don't say island of misfit toys, but we banded together because we see something different. And by the way, there's many different tribes who see stuff differently, and no one way is right. And everyone has a chance to prove it. And that's the exciting part of this now is everyone can have different success goals. And I think that's what I really enjoy is that
Oh, that's
our
cool,
version
yeah.
of success is different than anybody else's.
Right on. Hey, Dave, there's some plenty of other things that I could keep on bringing up, but Mark in the booth said it's time to go.
Fine, Mark.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry. Hey, man, I can't thank you enough because I call you and I hit you up last minute. Hey, can you come on in about an hour's notice? I appreciate that, Dave.
Nope. It's we really, that Jim Cornette did media this morning. Nikita Koloff of Magnum TA. We want people to come back and just check it out.
Very cool.
As much as I want people to buy tickets, and tickets go on sale to the general public on this Friday. We had a good pre-sale this morning. We want people to come check it out. And I think what's good is our events are different. And I'm not saying it's the best wrestling in the world. It's almost like this time warp. And our hope with Crockett Cup is that you walk into 1986. And I think that's to me the selling point of this event. I will tell you this: there will be no LED screens. It will be literally the graphics will be 1986 to 1988. We want people to feel like they're walking back into something that existed in a way, but in a modern way. And I think that's what's really exciting.
I dare you to find the Mulkey brothers. Anyways.
Hey, don't
George
think
South.
it hasn't crossed my mind if the Mulkeys had kids.
Well.
And that's what's interesting. And, how cool would it be one day if Nikita Koloff found his nephew?
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's the success of Karate Kid. The YouTube show tells me that people will fall back in love with things that their parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents all liked because great stories have been great since the caveman days. You know what I mean? All you got to do is know how to tell it.
And what's the best way for people to purchase tickets?
A Ticketmaster I think if you go to ROH Wrestling on the event page, there's a way to click over. You can join Honor Club now and get the tickets now, or Friday via Ticketmaster. If you search Crockett Cup at the Cabarrus Arena, it'll be there, and obviously through NWA and Ring of Honor socials, ticket links. 10 a.m. on Friday is the general on sale. I know ringside is gone already. As far as the Honor Club, it's going to be it's a nice little venue. We did a TNA pay-per-view there. There's not a bad seat. It's not a 30,000 seat building. It's really a fun time. I'm actually cutting the 10 pounds that showed the site survey with Billy and I. It's an old school building, and I think that's what's great.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you again, Dave, and
Thanks, guys.
hope I see you when you come out here next week.
Yeah,
Everyone,
I'll buzz you. I'll let you know where I'm at.
Dave Lagana. Everyone. Yeah. All right. All right. So,
Good show.
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right. Hey, last week I took the show home without everyone doing their obligatory, hey, you can follow me at. So let's start with you, Jimbo.
Oh, well, it was great to be back. And
Yeah, it was
anytime
great
I can
having
make
you.
it back here, I'll definitely come. Master Public on Twitter is sending us some free goodies to give away, some Lucha figures and some Lucha Brothers comic books. So stay tuned next week to find out about that giveaway. Denise will probably be in charge of that. And if you're in the Los Angeles area, Kevin Nash will be signing at That Wrestling Guy store Sunday from noon to 2. So check that out. Follow me on Twitter at Jimbo in the Booth.
All right.
I'm Steve Kaufman. You can find me on Twitter almost exclusively at Steve Kaufman. That is KAUFMANN. I'm involved in a lot of pro wrestlers' YouTube pages, similar to Dave Lagana. And if I'm retweeting the link, it's probably because I'm involved.
All right, guys, and if you don't know already, we do have an official show account for X-Pac12360 on Twitter. Check out at X-Pac12360 show. Make sure to use the hashtag X-Pac12360 because that's how we see all tweets and we retweet them and share them, and that's how we sort of build this community. So make sure to check that out. And then Instagram and Facebook at X-Pac12360. And then for me, at _ Denise Salcedo and YouTube.com/Denise Salcedo.
All right, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood every single week on Fight TV worldwide. Blackcraft Wrestling February 23rd in Toronto. And I'm very proud to say I'm going on tour with Rikishi.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that if you didn't mention it.
Yeah, we're going to be in Sacramento March 16th, San Francisco March 17th, the Brea Improv March 31st, and there might be another date, but I'll be all over on social media about it. Very excited to be working with him. So
Very cool. And, I'll tell you in a second what my, social media handles are. But, hey, I want to thank everyone that's been tuning into the show on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
The numbers are nice, and
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I'm glad that people are discovering that you can watch the show because it's a different experience. And so I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And that's youtube.com/Xbox.
/Xbox subscribe.
Yeah, please subscribe. And so, all right, well, we'll see you right here next week from the lovely AfterBuzz TV studios right here in North Hollywood, California.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Sean Waltman, producers Mark B. Donica, Jimbo Frank, and the entire X-Pac 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube. Follow X-Pac on Twitter at TheRealXpac and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com.